My sister took my inheritance to fund her dream wedding. Now she wants me to pay her rent. My sister Amber was the sun in our family universe. Bright, demanding, impossible to ignore, and like the sun, she burned everything in her path, especially me. We grew up in a modest house on the corner of Maple Street, the kind with creaky floors, floral wallpaper, and a porch swing that leaned slightly to the left. It smelled like cinnamon in the winter and cut grass in the summer. Our parents, both schoolteachers, weren't rich, but they were proud, and they were hopelessly, absolutely, obsessively devoted to their youngest child, Amber. She was the kind of kid who could break a vase and somehow get a hug out of it, who cried when she lost a board game and was declared the winner anyway, who always got the last piece of cake, the window seat on road trips, the bigger stocking at Christmas. I was 2 years older and invisible by comparison. Quiet, responsible, not the type to make a fuss, which only made it easier for everyone to ignore me. There was one moment that stuck with me though. I was 10, Amber 8. I had saved up my allowance for months to buy a used tablet, nothing fancy but mine. I treasured it. Amber asked to borrow it one afternoon. I hesitated, and she pouted. "Come on, Ron," she said, batting her eyelashes. "Just for a minute?" An hour later I found it cracked and soaking wet on the bathroom floor. She shrugged. "It fell," she said. "Oops." I was devastated. I told Mom, I told Dad. I even showed them the screen, spiderwebbed, water damage creeping up like mold. But all Mom said was, "Sweetheart, she didn't mean to. Don't make a big deal." And the next day, they bought her a brand new tablet. To make her feel better, they said. Mine wasn't replaced. That was when I learned Amber's tears weighed more than my silence. From then on, I stopped asking. I mowed lawns in the summer, shoveled snow in the winter, and saved every penny. I bought my own school supplies, fixed my own bike, packed my own lunches. I was 12 when I realized I'd have to earn everything on my own. Mom used to tell me, "You're the strong one, Ron, you don't need as much as she does." Dad never disagreed. It was easier that way. I watched Amber grow into her role, the star, the performer, the eternal favorite. She always got what she wanted because she knew how to make noise. I got what I needed because I knew how to shut up and endure. By the time we were adults, the pattern was set. Amber expected the world to bend for her, and I quietly moved out of its way. I made peace with it eventually. Family isn't about fairness, it's about who cries the loudest. The law office smelled like burnt coffee and old paper. Everything in it felt gray. The walls, the carpet, even the overpolished furniture that looked like it belonged in a funeral home. I sat across from Mr. Hale, my parents' longtime attorney. He was a man of few words, with thinning hair and eyes that flickered with discomfort every time he glanced at me. To his right sat Amber, dabbing her eyes with a tissue. Not because she was grieving, not really, but because it suited the moment. Our parents had died 3 weeks earlier. A car accident on the way home from a weekend trip. No long goodbye, no hospital vigil, just a phone call in the middle of the night and the world cracking open like a dropped plate. I'd handled the logistics. Amber had handled the dramatics. Now, here we were, the reading of the will, the final judgment. Mr. Hale cleared his throat and began, "As per the last will and testament of Richard and Diane Matthews." He started with Amber. "To our beloved daughter Amber," he read, "we leave the family home, our savings account in full, the Subaru Outback, and all proceeds from our life insurance policies." Amber gasped. "Oh my God," she whispered, "this changes everything. I can finally have the wedding I've always wanted." She clutched her chest like it was a scene from a soap opera. I stared straight ahead. Mr. Hale turned to me. "To our son Ronald." He paused. His mouth twitched like he was about to apologize but decided against it. "We leave the contents of Richard's study, including the bookshelf and personal effects, along with his tool collection in the garage, and a one-time sum of $5,000. I blinked. That was it. No house, no car, no mention of fairness or equality, just Dad's dusty books and a few aging hammers. Mr. Hale slid 2 envelopes across the table, one for each of us. Personal letters from our parents. Amber ripped hers open immediately. I held mine like it was made of glass. Her eyes scanned the page, then lit up. "They said I was always their little princess," she beamed. "They knew I'd make something special of this gift. They believed in my future." I opened mine more slowly. The handwriting was familiar. My father's blocky letters, my mother's flowing script in the margins. Ron, we know this might come as a shock. But you're strong. You've always been strong. You don't need help like Amber does. She's about to start a new life, a wedding, a home, a future. We trust that you'll understand. You're the man of the family now. I read the words 3 times. They didn't sting, not exactly. They just confirmed something I'd already known for years. Amber gets everything. I get to pretend it doesn't bother me. Ron, Amber said, wiping a fake tear. Can you believe it? A real wedding. I'm going to look like a princess, just like Mom always said I would. I didn't respond. I stood, folded the letter and slid it into my coat pocket. Mr. Hale mumbled something about paperwork. Amber was already scrolling through Pinterest on her phone. I left the office without saying goodbye. There was nothing to fight for. I'd spent my entire life being the quiet one, and no one hears the quiet one when the golden child is singing. I didn't go to the wedding. I got the invitation, of course. A gold embossed card inside a satin envelope, sealed with wax and smelling like overpriced perfume. It arrived 2 months after the reading of the will, along with a handwritten note from Amber that read, "I know Mom and Dad would have wanted you there. After all, none of this would be possible without them. Love, Amber." I tossed the card into a drawer and forgot about it. But the internet didn't let me ignore the wedding. The day of the ceremony, my feed exploded. Amber's Instagram story looked like a Disney movie on steroids. A sprawling white mansion rented for the weekend, draped in silk and orchids. A white horse-drawn carriage pulled her to the entrance while a string quartet played a slow-motion version of some top 40 hit. Everything sparkled. Her $12,000 dress, the crystal chandeliers, the ice sculpture shaped like a swan. Even the cake had its own hashtag. There were drone shots, fireworks, a hot air balloon that lifted her and her new husband into the sky at sunset, only for 10 minutes, but just enough to make it to every influencer's highlight reel. I watched it all in silence from my tiny apartment. Zach, the groom, waved from the balloon like he was some kind of prince. He was wearing a tailored tux that I'd bet good money he didn't pay for. I'd met him twice. The kind of guy who called himself an entrepreneur, but the only thing he seemed to hustle was Amber's wallet. Every comment under her posts was pure sugar. "You're the most beautiful bride. Your parents must be so proud in heaven. This is the kind of wedding every girl dreams of." And then came the one that hit me like a slap. "Thank you, Mom and Dad. You gave me the fairy tale I always dreamed of. I hope you're watching." I stared at the caption, then at the image, Amber in her white dress, smiling against a backdrop of sparklers, with Zach grinning like he just won the lottery. Which, in a way, he had. I closed the app. They didn't give her a fairy tale, they gave her my share of reality. But fine. Let her have her dream, let her fly in balloons and dance in rented castles. Fairy tales burn out eventually, and I'd been living in reality my whole life. 10 months. That's how long the fairy tale lasted. I hadn't heard much from Amber since the wedding, which suited me just fine. Every now and then I'd see a new post. Champagne brunches, luxury handbags, selfies in front of sunset views from their high-rise apartment downtown. Rent there ran close to $3,800 a month, but of course, they didn't worry about things like budgets. Not when they had an inheritance to burn through. The call came on a Tuesday. I was in my garage, fixing a cabinet door that had come off its hinge. My phone lit up, and for a second, I considered ignoring it. But curiosity won. "Ron?" Her voice was soft. Sweet, that tone she used when she wanted something. "Amber," I said, not offering more. She hesitated, then launched in. "So, Zach and we're in a bit of a transitional phase. He's launching something big. A startup. Honestly, it's genius. But in the meantime, we're just between things. Temporarily." I waited. I already knew where this was going. "I was wondering," she continued, "if maybe you could help out? Just for a couple of months. Just until we stabilize. I mean, it's family, right?" "How much are we talking?" I asked, keeping my voice flat. "Oh, not much, just around $7,000. It would cover rent and basics while Zach closes this deal. It's going to blow up, Ron. We just need a little runway." $7,000. That was more than I usually spent in a year on vacations, car repairs, and emergencies combined. "Amber," I said calmly, "I can't help you." There was a pause. "Can't or won't? Does it matter? Another pause. Sharper this time. Wow, I just thought, family is supposed to be support. I would have given everything for you. I didn't laugh, but it took effort. You already did, Amber. You just gave it to yourself. Click. That was the last time I heard her voice for a while. No more calls, no more texts, not even a passive-aggressive meme in my DMs. Just silence. It was peaceful and loud in its own way. It had been weeks since I heard from Amber, but then she called again. Not for money, not for a handout. This time she wanted to meet. I didn't expect much from it. I'd seen this show before. The rehearsed charm, the manipulative smile, the way she could turn any conversation into a reflection of her needs. But for some reason I agreed. Maybe I was tired of running from the truth. Maybe I just wanted to get it all out. We met at a small cafe, one of those trendy spots in the middle of the city, where the decor was intentionally minimal and the coffee cost $10. Amber walked in with her usual flair, perfectly done hair, that perfect shade of lipstick, and a fake warmth in her eyes that made her look like she could sell ice to an Eskimo. She sat across from me, a carefully curated pout on her face. I'm glad we could finally talk, she said, leaning forward. I thought maybe you'd understand by now. I've been patient, but we both know you're holding on to something, and it's just petty at this point. I let out a breath, slowly. Petty? Yes, she continued, her voice dripping with condescension. You've always been bitter, Ron. You were always the responsible one, the boring one. You know, Mom and Dad, they always said you didn't have the same fire. You didn't want the same things. And deep down you've always envied me. I felt my face twitch at the familiar words. Envied you? I repeated, leaning back in my chair, keeping my voice calm. You think I envied you? You mean because you were always the favorite? The one who could get away with anything? The one who took what she wanted, no matter who it hurt? Amber's eyes narrowed, but she pressed on. Exactly. You've always been too safe, too boring. I lived my life, I had dreams. And now you're just angry that I made them happen. Don't act like you're not jealous. That's when I felt the walls inside me start to crack. The years of silence, of swallowing my pride, it all started to boil up, and this time I wasn't going to hold back. No, Amber, I said, my voice rising. You didn't make it happen. You spent everything they gave you, everything I was denied, and now you want more. But it's never enough, is it? Her face turned sharp, but I didn't stop. I was 14 when I started working at that damn warehouse. I worked every summer, every weekend, to make sure I had something for myself. I sacrificed, Amber. I cried when I realized that, while you were getting everything handed to you, I had to build everything from the ground up. And when they died, they left me nothing but a stack of books and some old tools. Amber's eyes softened for a second, just a flash, but it quickly vanished. She opened her mouth to speak, but I cut her off. You know what? You took everything I had in the inheritance. And I didn't argue. I walked away. But I'm not going to let you walk all over me again. I've been patient, I've been polite. But this is the last time. I slammed my hand on the table, and she flinched. I've saved everything that was taken from me, and I won't give you any more. You've already spent everything you were given, and now you want to take more? No. Her face went pale. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. I'm done, I said, my voice steady now. I'm not your safety net, Amber, and I'm not going to keep fixing your messes. I'm not your backup plan. With that, I stood up, ready to walk out. Her chair scraped against the floor as she stood too. You're so selfish, she spat, her face flushed with anger. I can't believe you would do this. I didn't respond. I didn't have to. She turned on her heel, walked out of the cafe, and slammed the door behind her. I watched her go, her perfect little world falling apart just as fast as it had been built. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was finally free. The first post appeared on Facebook late that evening. Family turns their back when you need them most. The betrayal from the people closest to you is always the hardest to take. I thought I had a brother who would be there for me when everything fell apart. But I was wrong. It was from Amber. I stared at the screen for a long time, my mind reeling. I could almost hear her voice in my head as I read her words, dripping with the same manipulation that had been a constant throughout our lives. I had known she'd turn this into a war, but seeing it so clearly laid out in front of me was still a shock. Amber was painting herself as the victim, the helpless one who just wanted a little support. a little kindness from her selfish brother. Meanwhile, I was the villain, the one who had cut ties, refused to help, and cast her aside when she needed me the most. I wasn't surprised, of course. This was her go-to move. It was always about turning the tables, making everyone feel sorry for her, while she could continue her life without a care for the damage she caused. I scrolled down, my thumb slowing as I read more of her posts. My dream wedding? Ruined. I had to pay for everything on my own because my brother couldn't even spare a dime to support me. Family is everything, and yet he couldn't even be there. I knew I had to say something. I couldn't let this narrative take root. So I posted my own response. Amber, I gave you everything I could. You've taken from me for years and I've never complained. But I won't be your financial backup anymore. You made your choices, and now you're trying to paint me as the bad guy for refusing to be your personal ATM. I'm done. The reactions started flooding in immediately. Some were from distant relatives, others from her friends. A few of them didn't even know the full story but were eager to jump on the bandwagon. Ron's being unreasonable, one comment read. Family is family, you shouldn't just shut her out like that. I sighed, shaking my head. These were the same relatives who had always excused Amber's behavior. The same people who had been silent when I was the one left holding the bag, year after year. Then came the phone calls. Ronan, honey, it's Aunt Margie, came the voice at the other end of the line. You know Amber is going through a hard time right now. She's your sister. You can't just leave her hanging like this. I didn't even flinch. Aunt Margie, I replied, calm but firm, I'm done being the family's backup plan. She used everything I had left, emotionally, financially. I'm not her donor anymore. I'm not anyone's donor. She was silent for a moment, but I could hear the hesitation in her voice when she finally spoke again. I just don't understand, Ron. She's family. I'm family too, Aunt Margie, I cut in. But I've been invisible my whole life. I'm tired of being the one who has to fix everything. I'm not her fall guy anymore. She's had enough chances. Another call came in shortly after. This time it was my cousin Jason, his voice tight with concern. Dude, I get it, but Amber's your sister. You can't just turn your back on her. You're making her out to be the villain in all this. Is it really worth it? I didn't hold back. Jason, you've never had to live in her shadow. You don't know what it's like. She's always taken, always expected more. I'm done. I can't keep giving just because it's expected. Jason sighed. You've always been the rock, Ron. I just don't want to see you go down this path. I closed my eyes, letting out a deep breath. I've spent my whole life doing what others expected of me, but not anymore. I'm done. It's her turn to take responsibility for her choices. The calls kept coming. The messages kept piling up. It felt like the whole family was on Amber's side, even though no one had ever really seen what she was doing to me behind closed doors. But for the first time in my life, I felt free. Free from the expectation to be the good brother, the nice guy who never says no. Free from the guilt that had been hanging over me for as long as I could remember. I didn't owe them anything anymore, not Amber, not Aunt Margie, not anyone. And that was the most liberating feeling I'd ever had. The quiet of my apartment was comforting. The smell of coffee mixed with the faint scent of old books, the soft hum of my dog's breathing as he lay on the rug. It was the perfect escape from the chaos I'd lived through. I had my peace now, and for the first time in years I felt something close to contentment. There were no demands on me, no one expecting me to fix things, to bail someone out, or to shoulder the weight of a family that never truly saw me. I had the freedom to be myself, to live without constantly feeling like I was being used. It had been 6 months since the last call from Amber. 6 months since she'd moved out of the luxury apartment, her life now a far cry from the fairy tale she'd tried to sell to the world. I'd heard through family that she'd taken up work in a nail salon, her high-flying dreams now grounded in reality. Zach was gone. I hadn't been surprised. They'd never really been a team. He had always been more interested in the idea of her wealth than in actually building something with her. He wasn't even around when Amber tried reaching out again. I was sitting on my couch, flipping through one of my father's old books, when my phone buzzed. A voice message from Amber. I hesitated for a moment, the weight of what had happened still fresh in my mind. But I played it anyway. Ron, I know I messed up. I was stupid. I ruined everything. But if you can find it in yourself to help me out, just this once. I can't keep up with the mortgage on my own, just for this month. I'll figure it out after, I swear. The words hung in the air like a heavy fog. She sounded tired. I could hear the desperation, the thin veil of pride just barely holding up her voice. But no matter how many times I heard that tone, I couldn't bring myself to feel sympathy. I stared at the screen for a moment. The old familiar tug of obligation gnawed at me, but I pushed it aside. I didn't reply. Instead, I deleted the message. No anger, no resentment, just nothing. I wasn't angry with her. I wasn't even disappointed. I was just done. For years, I had been the one who was expected to fix things, to clean up her mess, to fill in the gaps. But I wasn't that person anymore. I had my own life now, my own space, and I had earned it. They always told me I was strong enough to do it on my own, I thought, as I set my phone aside. They were right. Just not in the way they expected.